I begin by expressing appreciation to the Congress of Ukrainian Canadians for their exemplary leadership in these difficult and painful times, reflecting and representing also the heroism of the Ukrainian people, and for convening this very timely and significant forum. And I'm delighted to join my fellow panelists, Senator Reinel Andrechuk, with whom I had the pleasure to work as a parliamentarian, my colleague Bob Ray for his inspiring global leadership as Canadian ambassador to the UN, and Alexandra Matvichuk, the head of the Center for Civil Liberties, recently awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, and whom I had occasion to hear when she was awarded also for her great human rights work by the National Endowment for Democracy in Washington. As we meet, we mark the beginning of the 8th month of Russia's criminal aggression in Ukraine, an unprovoked, premeditated, full-scale criminal aggression, an assault on the UN Charter and on the rules-based international order, underpinned by horrific mass atrocities, widespread and systematic war crimes and crimes against humanity, as well as standing breaches of the Genocide Convention. Indeed, the Raoul Wallenberg Center for Human Rights, which I chair, published the first ever independent report on these breaches of the Genocide Convention that underpin these mass atrocities. And let me just briefly summarize the principal findings and the correlative action that must be taken. First, we found that what is taking place in Ukraine is a state-orchestrated, direct, and public incitement to genocide, which, as the Supreme Court of Canada has held in a number of cases, is a stand-alone crime, whether or not acts of genocide follow. And we've seen this state-orchestrated incitement to genocide in, for example, the denazification trope, which was used to justify the very criminal aggression to begin with. The demonization and dehumanization of the Ukrainian people, indeed the denial even of the existence of a Ukrainian people, of its independence, of its culture, of its language, of its identity. And the continuing, as we speak, public and direct incitement to genocide, as just 2 days ago, the reference to the need for the de-Satanization of Ukraine, all these incitement tropes that are a standing and direct incitement to genocide and a standing breach of the Genocide Convention, which leads to the second finding, and that is that genocidal intent by the Russians can be inferred from the widespread and systematic war crimes and crimes against humanity, can be inferred from the horrific mass atrocities, which have included mass killings, as in the well-documented Bucha massacre, which have included indiscriminate bombing as we meet of civilians and civilian infrastructures, which have included deliberate and specifically and systematic infliction of life-threatening conditions, of rape and sexual violence. I can go on. These are almost too painful to recite, but all a pattern from which a genocidal intent to commit genocide can be inferred, which leads inexorably to the third finding, which we have determined, and that is that the criminal aggression in Ukraine, the public and direct incitement to genocide, the genocidal intent which we have itself determined. All of this creates a risk of genocide. And under the Genocide Convention, there is an obligation to prevent. We are not obliged to await until the genocide occurs. The obligation to prevent is there and manifests itself when the risk to genocide has already found expression, as it has in all that I have sought to share with you. And so I close with 4 specific recommendations, which for reasons of time I will summarize in one-liners. First, the imperative need to establish an independent tribunal for the crime of aggression. None of the existing legal remedies, the necessary ones, such as prosecution before the ICC or the International Court of Justice initiation, none of these allow for or have jurisdiction with respect to the crime of aggression. We need, therefore, an independent criminal tribunal for that purpose. And I have recently met both with our Canadian Foreign Minister, Melanie Joly, and 2 days ago with Prime Minister Trudeau, in which, among other things, I emphasized the importance of Canadian leadership in establishing such an independent tribunal for the crime of aggression. Second, we need as well to establish an international claims commission, with respect to the necessary reparations that will have to be undertaken for that purpose, so as to protect the Ukrainian people and to allow for the return to a normal and safe and secure life and existence as an independent and secure people and state. The third thing is to ensure that the responsibility to prevent under the Genocide Convention is in fact adhered to and acted upon. And finally, to ensure that we move forward with a sense of urgency with regard to these obligations, which should include as well the protection of heroic dissidents in Russia, like Vladimir Kara-Murza, charged with high treason for doing nothing else but protesting against Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And so I trust that this important gathering and Congress will inspire us to undertake the necessary action on behalf of the heroic people of Ukraine and on behalf of our common humanity. Thank you.